I think I've got a few opinions on the way that SEO is going to move in the future with AI. And I think that it's going to change dramatically. 100%. To me, starting my business without project management software or tools like that, it would be impossible to work at all. Yeah. That's, for me, the sole component of SEO. Yeah, you can be really great technical SEO. I don't think you need to anymore. You don't need a developer anymore to do SEO.
Yeah.
You just need to create some good content that drives results.
Hello, I'm Dustin Miller, PolyInnovator. Today, I'm talking with Mitchell Sullivan, who is a fractional CMO, content writer, and SEO expert. Thank you for joining me on the PolyTools Creator Spotlight.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It's one of those things where I love to be able to talk to people about their content journeys and the kind of content they've made over their life. And so why don't we get started with that? Like, what got you started as a content creator?
To be honest, it's going back in time a lot. I was in my early 20s and I was studying marketing at university, and I really didn't know exactly what area of marketing I wanted to go into. And I forget who gave me the advice actually, but essentially just started to keep a journal. So I'd keep a journal and I would start writing, and I started practicing writing, and I found that I quite enjoyed to do that. So once I went down that path, I realized, hey, this is something I actually quite enjoy, expressing myself on that form of a medium, right? Mm-hmm. And I read a few books. I think Everybody Writes by Anne Handley was my favorite. I tried to perfect my craft, and then I ended up reaching out to a few different just smaller companies around Sydney, Australia, to get a few different writing contracts, and realized, hey, I actually can make money doing this as well. So yeah, I guess that's the background of how I got into it. It was just kind of, hey, I kept a small journal.
And it's interesting too, because everybody does kind of have to write. Even if you're making YouTube videos, for example, you have to write the script or the outline, that kind of thing. Same with podcasting. Even with these interviews, I have to write out the questions. I have to write out the format, like what's going to happen. And blog posts and journaling, those are two aspects of expression that I think that you can't really quite replicate with video. It's something about the written word that really kind of speaks out to people.
Correct. And I agree. I think it doesn't matter what you do. Even if you're writing emails, you write, and you need to be able to express your thoughts in that form of medium. So it's something I truly like. Even if I'm, talking to my partner, my girlfriend, about something that I need to tell her personally, I will write out my thoughts first so that I can express myself verbally afterwards. So it's something that I think everyone should practice at the very least. And a good place to start is actually that book that I mentioned. And I don't get money from her at all. She would have no idea who I am. It's just a really good book.
Well, and it makes me think of a few different questions to ask you and stuff like that. When I started doing the show, it spawned off of a series I did called the Poly in Content, meaning like much or many ways of doing content. And the reason why I made that series is because I wanted to make a blog post, a video, and a podcast all in one, every episode. But when people do repurposing like that, they often start with a video and just transcribe it. But I felt like, no, writing's going to make a much more impactful way of doing it if I start off with a blog post first. And I just like that was kind of unique, and I was kind of curious what your thoughts were from that point of view.
No, I agree with you completely, but I don't know if I agree with you because it's just how I've always done it. It's always started as a blog because I am a writer by background, right? I've moved a little bit more senior now, but I still write first. As you're saying, even if I want to create video content, it is, right, I need to write the script, I need to write the goal, I need to write the mission, what I want to accomplish, and that's all starting from a written form. So no, I think what you've done there is I don't know if that's best practice, but it's definitely something that I also do myself.
Well, and I think it's best practice in the sense that it is our anchor, like pillar type, if you will. Like that is what we prefer. The next question here is actually like out of the three, like what do you prefer writing, or what do you prefer doing? And you've already answered that, because essentially that is where you start from. That is the mindset you have as a content creator. And since we both are aligned like that, it's kind of fun to be able to kind of dig into this and think to ourselves, like, why did writing kind of sink to us so deeply? And it's kind of like asking a podcaster, why does audio sink so deeply for them?
Yeah, I don't know, because it's also strange for me in the sense that I actually like learning through podcasts as opposed to reading. So it's strange that I would prefer to teach others through writing as opposed to audio. I suppose I'm just more comfortable with that, but it's something that I do believe that it's the starting point for everything. I think it'd be very strange if you start doing a video and then try to transform that into a blog. Although I know a lot of people do that, right?
Well, so, and if you don't use
that's just the reverse.
Sorry, if you don't just transcribe it and leave it at that, then that's bad. But some people actually make it into blog posts. But I agree, It is interesting to think about too that your input and your output format is going to be different usually. And so, like you said, you like to input through podcasts. And I think that's something that we should highlight there because everyone's going to be different. And I think that a lot of content creators don't actually know what their anchor is when they first started doing their output. And you have to experiment to
Right.
find that usually.
And that's exactly what I'm doing here on this podcast right now.
Mhm.
I know that writing is probably going to become commoditized. I think AI is moving heavily into it. If you're writing quote unquote how-to blogs, I think that's going to just be almost eliminated by a lot of AI content. So I know that I need to start expressing myself more
Mm.
in audio and video that can't be that easily replicated, right? I mean, it can, but so that's my thoughts there.
Yeah. Have you experimented much already on video and audio yet? Or is this kind of one of your first forays?
No, I have. I've done a fair few podcasts like this. I've done. I mean, back in my old university, I've been a guest lecturer for some time now. So that was where I first started to practice. Was all right. I need to get more comfortable with public speaking, get
Mm.
comfortable presenting in a video. I started in COVID, so it was all right. I'm going to start learning how to talk in front of a group, and that was university students, which is kind of the best group
Yeah.
to start in. They're kind of
They're eager.
eager, they're
Yeah.
enthused, yeah, they're enthusiastic. You don't necessarily feel like you're the stupidest person in the room. We all have imposter syndrome at times.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think it's just trying to dip my toe into different areas of marketing, of content creation, because I know that that's going to be necessity in the future. We're moving into a world where it is very much driven by creators and personality types, from Elon Musk to whoever, right? It
Hmm.
doesn't really matter nowadays. So I think that's going to be pretty important moving forward.
I definitely love doing this show too because I just love talking shop about content creation as a subject. It's something I nerd out about, and I get to nerd out with people like you on here, which is fun. And you're one of the
Right.
first people I get to nerd out with blogging and Reddit posts actually in a long while, so that's really
Right.
fun.
Right.
One thing that I've been toying with is this idea of like a social blog concept. So like newsletters are generally pretty short. LinkedIn articles, Medium articles are generally pretty short. And so I kind of consider them like the short blog posts or short written content. They're not tweets, they're not Facebook posts, but they're not full on blog posts either. They're kind of in the middle ground there. So you have the
Right.
micro, the social blogs, and the actual blog posts, and maybe like blockbuster posts. What are your thoughts on that scale?
In terms of what exactly?
Well, I'm just thinking like people don't generally talk about the length of post as often. Like they might talk about a blockbuster or a pillar post to really draw in
Right.
a whole bunch of links, but beyond the huge, they don't really talk about the small as much.
I think, and it's actually funny that you say this because I was listening to a podcast yesterday. It's called Marketing Against the Grain. It's the
Oh yeah.
CMO of HubSpot, and yeah, great podcast. But as they were saying, that they had a video. I think he's someone high up at Wistia, and he's saying that people will choose not to watch maybe a 30-second reel, but if they've got them really engaged, they'll read a 20 or they'll listen to a 20-second video. Sorry, a 20-minute video, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's the same thing with a blog post. If you've got, or any form of medium, if you've got the attention of who you're talking to, it doesn't really matter the length of the content. Like, you'll see little short snippets on Twitter and that works, but someone will very well go from Twitter and go, or X now, and go to a blog post and read an entire article. So I don't necessarily think there's some correlation between a shorter post versus a longer post and what's better or what's worse. I think it's just more, can you express the goal that you're trying to in the time that you have? And do you have an engaged audience in the end?
Definitely. And that's why I like the whole social blog idea because I think there's some ideas that you might want to experiment with that you might not want to have a full on blog post about. So you can kind of just pick a few paragraphs for this post because it's longer than like a tweet. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting way. If you can get their engagement and focus on the actual reading of the longer post, that's what really matters.
And that's all that marketing or content creation is, right? Is you're trying to get awareness and you're trying to get attention.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever way you can do that to your audience and figure out what they like, go for it.
One of the like, I spent a lot of years learning about content and inbound, and one of the few areas that I feel like I know a decent amount about, but I can't speak on it very much. I can't really understand it fully. Is actually SEO. And so, can
Yeah.
you maybe give a overview for people who don't know anything about SEO? It could be
Do you want me to
quick.
go into the future of SEO, or you want me to go background?
Mm.
Because I think I've got a few opinions on the way that SEO is going to move in the future with AI, and I think that it's going to change dramatically. I think in the past, I think marketers were in quite a good place, right? You create a blog post or whatever, you put in the title tag, you put in the meta descriptions and all of those things, and realistically, it can rank well for Google. Nowadays, I think that when you look at, say, Google's just introduced AI Overview, they've already had featured snippets in the past, right? And we saw traffic drops for that. But now AI Overview is going to take a lot of those how-to questions away, which is how most people have driven traffic to their website, right? Which is SEO. Just driving traffic through search engines, essentially, if you want to define it like that. So that's going to change dramatically, which is exactly why I sit here and think that video and audio and things like that are going to be the new dynamic landscape of marketing moving forward. Not that it probably hasn't been for the past few years, but SEO was something that it's still important, right? You should still do it. There's a lot of good tools out there that you can use that can quickly do it for you. Rank Math, if you're using WordPress, is one example that I really like.
That was one of my favorite plugins myself too.
Yeah, really easy to use, really easy to put in just what you need to. And to be honest, that bare minimum work is probably where I'd say that you should start. Anyone can do that. It walks you through the steps. It will do it yourself. Sometimes they've actually got an AI plugin now. So, yeah.
So going off of that, like what more future ideas do you think will happen? Because I know that a lot of Gen Z use TikTok, for example, for searching. And like you said, the AI is getting implemented in Google. There is obviously Bing still kind of a thing, and people don't really keep a mind on that. And I've definitely gotten some traffic from there too when I went on there. So it's just interesting to think about where it might go next, especially without video.
I might be an early adopter in that sense that I already use ChatGPT for more of my searches than I do Google. Now, there's problems with that, with it hallucinating, which is what it's supposed to do, right? Mm-hmm. But I think in terms of, it's quite good. I broke my toe a few weeks ago. I think I was actually telling you about it. And instead of going through Google and looking at what results I could get, which would lead me back to someone's website that isn't really directed for my specific question, it's almost impossible. AI is going to become to the point where it is personalized and tailored to you. It is, hey, this is my exact problem. Can you scale the website, the internet for this exact example, what I'm giving you? And it's just a better search experience, which is what Google was trying to do. And I think it's what AI now does. So I think SEO moves into the future of how do you optimize for ChatGPT? How do you optimize for Claude? How do you optimize for these different AI searches that we're going to be doing in the future? And the answer is still pretty unclear, at least as far as I'm aware. So maybe it's going to be a different era.
Yeah. I was just thinking maybe optimizing it for web crawlers or something like that, or maybe having a way to, because nowadays you can input your website into search engines, but maybe we can have a way to input your website into these different AI chatbots.
Yeah, I would imagine that they're going to find a way to do that, right? But yeah, to be honest, and I don't want to go into the weeds of AI. I truly think that it will all change. I don't know if you watched the Apple iOS 18 introduction, where essentially you have an AI agent, right, working for you to accomplish a goal, right? And I think the example they used was booking a flight for their mother. That changes the complete way a website is written. Instead of writing it for a human and for Google, you're now writing it for an AI agent that needs to perform a task, right? So I think really SEO is going to change dramatically. It already has, and it's going to continue.
And you are right with the whole ChatGPT hallucinating. A lot of people say that Perplexity AI is a lot better about that, not as many hallucinations and a little bit more wide-ranging information. But that was,
Yep.
What tools do you use for content creation and repurposing at this point?
So there's a few. HubSpot has a new one actually, which I haven't tried, and I liked it. I think it's called Content Remix. I don't know if you've actually seen that. That looks quite cool. I haven't played around with that.
First I've heard
Overall, it's actually quite good. So it'll turn, if you've got a blog post, it will turn it using AI into a LinkedIn post, into whatever. Right now, and again, I'll try to jump off my AI feed. I write it on Notion to start with. I need, as a writer, I think I need something that I can add to it no matter where I am. So Notion allows me to go for a walk and add to my thoughts with it. I like to just free write in Notion, just absolutely word dump into it, and then go through and chop and change. And then from that, it depends on what medium I've got, right? If I'm turning that into a LinkedIn post, I kind of chop out the key points and put in the very, clickbaity headlines that LinkedIn is, which is sentence, break, sentence, right? So, but it all starts for me on on Notion or on Google Docs or some form of just really basic platform that I can use on a desktop or I can use on a phone.
My main channel is actually about knowledge management tools like Notion. I spent half a decade using Notion myself, so I definitely understand.
Right.
I'm in Obsidian now, but I definitely think that having a tool that can help organize your information architecture is definitely a dramatic way of improving yourself as a content creator. So by having a place like that where at any moment you can mind dump something and have it like get those fleeting ideas, that's super powerful. You can get a lot more content that way.
Oh, 100%. To me, starting my business without project management software or tools like that, it would be impossible to work at all. And I've used all of them. I think AI, banking, and project management software is like the three things that I really nerd out on.
Yeah. Well, and definitely feel free to nerd out on AI. I know you're kind of like dipping your toe in the water there in this conversation. You're like, I don't want to dive right in because then you'll never stop me. But like, I think that's kind of the point of these shows. Go on some tangents, have some fun with it. Especially if we could find something new. Like I have seen a handful of tools that can remix your content into something else or repurpose it in some ways, but I hadn't heard of HubSpot. And that's one reason why I like this PolyTools show, where we can actually go into what tools have we found, what rabbit holes have we gone down.
Right. Yeah, no, I've gone down into, and I think that's the job of a marketer, right, is to know what's out there, what can help you accomplish the end goal in the end. But, for example, I tried to use HeyGen. I don't know if you've heard of that. Essentially, it's a human AI video. Tried to use that for a few demo videos. It doesn't turn out as well as it should just yet. But I think in the next few years, that will become really great technology. So we're going to move into a world where just video content is out there, really accessible. But a lot of these tools, I'm finding myself, I need to spend a few hours each week just to make sure I'm keeping up with it, right? Like I don't know if you've used Claude before, but Claude is to me, the best LLM model out there. And they've just done a way that essentially kills presentations, right? I don't know if you saw their demo, but I played around with it myself. It can create interactive dashboards. So let's say I'm talking to you and I've got some statistics that I want to show you and you say, hey, that statistic's not that relevant. I'll say, no worries. I'll take that out and I'll actually create a dashboard so that you can interactively see the data that I want to present to you. So it changes presentations, changes pitch decks, changes lots of things moving forward.
And I think one thing we should point out too is that AI is not going to replace people, but people using AI will replace people. And if you can't adapt to the times and find the new tools, that's going to be a hard shift for you.
Definitely. I don't sit here on a doomsday. I think, jobs will change just as they have, but definitely the people that are early adopters, as with anything, right, they will be the ones that succeed in the end.
Yeah. I actually created a tools directory, and that's where this channel is kind of based off of. And there's a category called auto-generated. And so there's a lot of tools like HeyGen or Reddit to video and stuff like that, where we can take all these different written pieces or maybe something like in a podcast and turn them into videos, turn them into maybe a Reddit post into a video. It's so fascinating, the tools that are out now.
So many, and you're going to see so many startups created and fall and new ones. It's an exciting time. It's a good time to be a marketer, I think, and a scary time at the same time.
Definitely think that like being able to adapt just to one area like SEO is hard for a lot of people. But then on top of that, adding AI, adding just different blogging techniques and different blogging tools. Like I use Ghost instead of WordPress now. Not everyone still knows about Ghost, despite the fact it's been around for 5 years now at the very least, maybe longer. And it's like people are really gushing over Substack and Beehive, but they're kind of limited on what you can do. Do you have a preference on platform that you use? Are you still on WordPress? Have you moved on?
So because I'm a fractional CMO, right, my clients use everything from Concrete 5, which I'd never heard of until I had a client jump in there. I actually haven't heard of Ghost. That's a new one. I'll have to look at that. But yeah, everything. WordPress, used Beehive, used... absolutely all of them. Drupal, everything. So I still like WordPress. I think that maybe I'm just stuck in my ways in that sense. I know very quickly how to use it. I haven't really thought about changing If I have a choice to move a client into WordPress, I'll choose that. But yeah, probably it's not the best option moving forward anyway.
Well, I found myself using WordPress for many years there. And like you said earlier with the whole Notion, you want to be able to just get the idea out. And I felt that the way that WordPress operates, like just the UI, UX, it actually prevented me from getting into the writing. There was too many steps from point A to point B to get to writing. And every time I go in there, a plugin has to be updated. A plugin security is, hampered. And so with Ghost, it's very minimalist. It's JavaScript too, so it's way faster than WordPress through PHP.
Right.
Yeah, it's just nice. And I'm thrown out about that. A little biased.
No, all right. I'm gonna have to check that out because I do truly hate, if I'm not constantly updating plugins,
Oh,
your website can have some issues, right? And when you have multiple clients, it becomes a challenge
yeah.
in the end. So, I've got I use Todoist. I've got Todoist task. Update plugins every Friday at 11 o'clock. It's like, all right.
Well, I was on a podcast community on Facebook yesterday. Like, I don't really go on Facebook hardly at all, but I wanted to be part of this community. I'm scrolling through, and someone's using the Blueberry podcasting plugin from on WordPress, and I guess it got hacked recently, and essentially they got two admins injected into their site that they had to go and then remove after like fixing the whole plugin
Wow.
security, and stuff like that just drove me like crazy worried about it. Just for context, Ghost is kind of like Substack and WordPress had a baby, if you will. It's like a newsletter platform,
Right.
but it's powerful like WordPress, where you have an actual website too.
Right. Okay. Interesting. No,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to check that out. That's probably a better way to build some of the smaller businesses that I've worked with.
Yeah, it's hard because you can't necessarily make a whole homepage per se like you would be like an Elementor in WordPress. But if you know a little bit of HTML, CSS, you can play around with it and have it working for you. So,
Right.
moving on to the next question here, because you and I will keep going down a rabbit hole if we're not careful.
Yeah, that was a long tangent. It's probably my fault.
Nah, in fact, I would actually encourage you to do more tangents. It's all good. So, what are the lessons you have learned in the SEO world from working with big companies and small companies and the like?
I think the best thing is to just actually make sure that you're doing something and that you're maintaining and you're staying on top of relevant headlines and making sure you're adding in the title tags and things like that. But overall, for me, SEO is just content creation. It's just writing articles that meet the goal or meet the end users, desire to perform a function on your website, right? So I think the first step is to understand exactly what they want to read about, what they want to learn. And sometimes you kind of have to take a few guesses, but I've got a few blog examples that I wrote that just ended up driving insane amounts of traffic. I would have never guessed it if I didn't speak to a few customers and actually ask them, hey, like, what do you read about it? And I'll give an example. I work with a title insurance software company, and I'd speak to a few title insurance agents, like, what outside of title insurance, what do you struggle with? And they would all say the same thing: marketing. We struggle with marketing. So I thought, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write an article on marketing your title company, and I'll see if that drives up some SEO numbers, some organic traffic. That, to this day, that's been about 4 years now, is still it's the homepage, and then it's that. and it's like, all right, so now the same thing. I have to keep making sure that I'm updating it and staying relevant and staying to point what they want to know, right? So now AI is a thing. I'm going in there and updating the AI component of title insurance marketing every couple of months now, it seems like. So I think it's interviewing your customers, finding out what they want to learn about, trying to write it. Again, that does change with AI now, as I just mentioned before, but that's for me the sole component of SEO. Yeah, you can be really great technical SEO. I don't think you need to anymore. You don't need a developer anymore to do SEO.
Yeah.
You just need to create some good content that drives results.
I had a post called "How to Go Omnichannel," and it was one of my like blockbuster posts. So it's a really huge one, probably like 7,000 words, something like that. And it was interesting to think about how much traffic. Like every time someone comes to me and they're like, I'll get those emails like, "Hey, can you add my link to your site because I saw this post?" That one's one of the ones that blew up the most. So I kind of want to ask you then, like, would it be better to keep updating that old post or make a series based around that topic? If that one topic did well, do you want to continue it?
Yeah, I've thought about that. I think it's just when I look at the people that are reading it, right, title insurance agents, they're probably, and I'm not trying to insult anyone, they're probably not as savvy with marketing as they potentially could be, right? So they're probably not looking granularly at marketing and going, oh, how do I do AI marketing, or how do I do SEO? How do I do this? I think they're just being pretty generic: marketing your title company. So I've thought about breaking it out a few times, but I always end up landing back on that conclusion. And you can go through research and figure out what keywords are being reviewed, right, using some tools. And for me, it's just led it: marketing your title company. And that's now got just a solid position there that I don't want anyone to steal away traffic from it, that I'm like, all right, I'm going to continuously update it and make sure that it's quite good. And overall, I think that's what SEO is when you've published something, making sure it's actually a good piece of content someone wants to read. A lot of times we just publish, oh, I need to get this article out, publish.
I definitely feel like I play both sides there, and I'm trying to figure out like where my brain's going to ask the next question. So, can you continue that line of thinking? Because I can't seem to think of a question off of that. My brain's going three different ways when it came to what you were saying.
I mean, for me, right, it's if you're breaking down the research, right, and you've got marketing your title company, we'll keep using that. You can see if someone's searching social media marketing, social media, whatever. Maybe it's a quarter of the results, 1/10 of the results. It's trying to figure out exactly, all right, do I bother to create a new piece of content that potentially takes traffic away from this? Because if you have title tags throughout, if you've got subheadings that are already performing quite well, it's probably ranking for those keywords anyway. Right? If you've got marketing your title company, but you have a subheading social media marketing in title, it's probably in a really niche industry like that. It's probably up there and ranking at the very least anyway. So as a small team, do I break down the resources and create a bunch of different blogs and then worry about updating them constantly and having this endless supply? Or do I just keep making sure that I've got one that's just this Bible, so to speak, of marketing for title? And that's kind of where I ended in the end. That could not be correct, right? I think overall, as long as you do something that works, I could have easily broken it down into different, and maybe if I did that a few years ago, it would have worked better. But
Shoulda, coulda, woulda, if you will.
exactly, as long as you do something in the end.
Yeah. So you've been doing this for a long time. Can you share your favorite story that's happened to you as a content creator?
To be honest, it's probably that. It's that article that was so shocking. I spent a lot of time on it. I designed it. I've redesigned it. I've given a lot of effort to it. It really improved not just the flashy statistics of, oh look, our organic traffic increased, but it actually led to an increase in sales as well. But on top of that, it has my contact details in there as well, and it's turned into something that my individual consulting business profited from. Yeah. So for me, that was like oh wow, I created this for this client, and not only has it helped them, but it's helped me and it's helping people. And yeah, I've loved that story. I love that it's been able to work so well as it has.
I love that. Have you thought more about, like, obviously you have your consulting business, but do you think more about doing your personal brand work content, or just kind of going all into the consulting stuff?
Yeah, I think if you speak to most consultants, they would probably say the same thing, right? I would like to do what you're saying, to focus on my own personal brand, but you end up spending so much time making sure your clients are happy and keeping the lights on. And I've got an 8-year-old son, and I'm making sure that I've got a roof over his head and food. So do I have the time to focus on my personal brand? What's the opportunity cost there? It's a challenge, right? So I am trying to do it, hence why I'm on this podcast, hence why I'm doing other things, right? I've tried to write content for LinkedIn. I found I actually struggled with it, even though I'm a writer. It's so cheesy and clickbaity. Different. I found it's very different. I wasn't a fan of it. And Twitter, I find if I go on Twitter, end up wanting to go down a political discussion. I'm like, all right, this is a platform that makes me angry. So overall, I haven't found my area that I think I'm comfortable in. I think maybe video is a good one, but again, I know that if you start it, it's such a long process to get to a point where it achieves a good result versus me making sure a client is successful and paying my bills at the same time. It's a challenge.
I have a few ideas off of that. For one, I went on Twitter and just blocked any of the major political figures that I think that would bother me on both sides, mind you. Especially in the US, there's a lot of dichotomy, and I don't like that. And now I enjoy Twitter quite a bit. I go on there, see some pixel art, video games, and people creating content. Like, cool. Same with Threads. Threads is a lot more pleasant to be on, I feel like.
Is it? Right. Yeah. I haven't checked out Threads, actually. I know that as a marketer, I should be on every platform. I think Gary Vee says that, right? Be everywhere. Not that I agree, but yeah, be everywhere. Yeah, I haven't looked at Threads, so maybe I should.
I do agree that you should be everywhere, but Gary Vee also has a team behind him, and I think that people often think that, if I'm everywhere, I have to be everywhere all at once, every single time. There's a tool called yup.io where it allows you to cross-post between Twitter, Lens, Farcaster, and one other kind of blockchain Twitter alternative. They don't have Threads just yet, but they should soon. But essentially, you just tweet it once and it goes to all four. And I think that's a great way. Syndication is a great way of being everywhere.
Yeah, it's good and bad as well, right? Because I mean, what you create for Twitter might not resonate as well on Threads. It's just they become so different little
Mm.
sub communities that they're all in. So yeah, I think more so, and again, I disagree with Gary Vee as well. I think it's knowing who your customers are. It's going back to the 1960s of marketing. Hey, you're conducting some research, you find out where they hang out, you visit where they hang out, and you're interactive where they hang out. Right? Back in the days, we had to just do some focus groups and figure out what newspaper they were reading or something. It's the same thing now.
Syndication's kind of weird too, because technically speaking, I think we're finally on the cusp of it changing. But for the longest time, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, and TikTok, you could post the same thing and be fine. It may not resonate as well. Like on Reels, my content doesn't do as good as TikTok and YouTube. Like YouTube, it's doing great. TikTok's all right.
Right.
Instagram's hit or miss. But it's still one of those things where that content can go there. You know what I mean? And so it's interesting to think about, like, should you syndicate? When should you syndicate? When should you stop syndicating, kind of thing? Start really focusing on isolated strategies.
Right. Yeah, it's something that works and sometimes doesn't work. And I guess it depends on the platform. I heard that the same podcast again and again. I'm not trying to promote them, but Marketing Against the Grain, I do love it. But they used AI to try to create kind of some sort of diagram that shows a correlation between their Spotify episodes, I believe it was, and YouTube, and what correlation there was between the successful episodes on Spotify and the ones on YouTube. And they only found one episode that had both. Like, so in other words, a successful episode on Spotify wasn't necessarily successful on YouTube, right? So it's kind of interesting because the only different component, right, is that instead of listening to it, you're just seeing them talk on YouTube. It's not really all that different, but it creates such a different environment or experience for someone watching it.
And Spotify has video too, so you could watch on Spotify if you're into that, if your show is doing it.
Right.
Which is weird.
Right.
Not everyone watches. Like, if I go on a podcast on Spotify, I'm listening to it even if they have a video. It's just what I'm used to.
I've used Spotify for years. I didn't even know they had video, so I'm really surprised that.
Yeah. In fact, I think they just opened it up to everybody. I've had it for a hot minute, but it was really annoying to upload, and I had a lot of issues where they would just kind of fail on the upload, so I stopped trying to do it. But I definitely think that if it was more stable, it'd be more worthwhile.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. No, I'll have to look at it.
The other thing I was thinking about, it kind of goes back to the whole social blog idea. Because, like, you and I, we love blogging. We love making actual real posts. But then when you get to, like, LinkedIn articles, this is why I left Medium. Medium got really scummy really quick with their whole membership thing. And people started putting social blogs under the paywall, where it's like, I feel like the social blog should be free. Make long-form blog posts if you're going to post it on Medium and put those behind the paywall. So it's kind of a weird dynamic, especially on, like, different social networks.
And and maybe I'm going to trigger you with this as well. I think everything eventually goes underneath a paywall, right? If you're creating good content and you don't want it to be found through an AI agent or chatbot or your content to be repurposed essentially, right, without your permission, I think eventually a lot of things become gated in that sense on our websites. Hey, you want to read marketing your title company? All right, here you go. I'm going to gate it. Give me your email address, because otherwise you're just going to search it on ChatGPT, Claude, etc. So I think we're moving to a world of gated. I don't know if that prediction is going to be correct, but we'll see.
I think you're right on that. I don't think that what you said is going to trigger me at all, because what I'm triggered with is that the micro mini blogs that are super short are getting gated.
Right.
Not the actual quality posts like you talked about earlier in your story, that long form or my omnichannel post. Those, I have a gated membership on my website, the Poly Pro. Right. Like, if I make a mega post, those are what I feel are deserved to be gated. And so, like, hey, pay for that. The rest of the posts will be free. So I don't know. It's just difference in the size. Like, if I make a blockbuster post, that one will be gated, I feel like.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's just so many ways that you can go about marketing, right?
Exactly.
It just depends on your audience, and there's no one size fits all.
Well, I brought it back up to the whole social blogs because you were saying how, like, LinkedIn was feeling kind of iffy for you. I wonder if maybe just using that remix from HubSpot or some other tool like it and just, phoning it in a little bit and just, like, make a really great blog post, repurpose it for the short form or medium, I guess you could say.
It's just tough because it just doesn't sound like me in the end, and I look at it and I'm like, I started to write on LinkedIn, right, for a little while, and I had to add in brackets, typical LinkedIn clickbait space, Like I literally wrote it out loud so that someone could be like, look, I'm against this way of writing, but I know that if I don't write like this, it's not going to be resonated with, and you're going to just scroll because you see a big text block. I don't know how it became like that, but it's just that's how what works on LinkedIn. You see like Alex Hormozy, and it's just very like I made $100,000 in 10 days. Here's how, and you can't read it till I hate it.
Truly. And it's under the fold and all that jazz. I definitely did not enjoy writing on LinkedIn, especially since even just I'm a big UI guy, and if the UI interface is really crappy for writing, I can't stand it. Like Medium was pretty good for a hot minute, but there was a time where I didn't like the block-based editing, and then WordPress went to Gutenberg and went into that block-based, and I didn't really quite like it there. Whereas tools like Substack and Ghost, it's very free-form, like Notion. Notion's pretty block-based, but it doesn't feel like it's blocking you.
Yeah, correct. No, 100%. You need to feel comfortable where you're writing, I think.
So what do you have coming down the line that you're looking forward to, Mitchell?
For me, it's, and I'm going back consistently here. For me, it's AI tools. I'm looking forward to, I think that in the past I was, how I'm working right as a fractional CMO, I tend to work with smaller companies. Maybe they've got 150 or so employees. So they don't have a large marketing budget. Often they don't have the ability to have a videographer or et cetera. So video has often been a little bit out of reach. And if we did, it was a lot of the budget, the opportunity cost of what you're giving away. So I think that a lot of these tools coming out will allow someone like me that maybe has some good ideas for video. I can now get into that space. And I think because of that, you're going to see a lot more quality video content, script writing, and things like that coming out. So I'm really looking forward to being able to move into that space a little bit more aggressively and put some of the good written form content that I think would work well on video, and starting to do that without taking a lot of the budget.
I definitely think that like Synesthesia, Hagen, some of the other like auto generation tools like that will be very useful for that, especially like if you start from writing, like we talked about earlier, the written post, the audio post, and the video post, regardless of which order you do it in. If your anchor is like us, where we start with writing, then you could still make a high quality video. And I think the issue for me was that I was trying to make a video from scratch from that blog post. I didn't just like read it out word for word. I used it as bullet points and made a whole fresh video. And that's why that strategy kind of died out on me. But if I were to just be able to take that blog post and turn it into a quality video, that would make a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how the future goes. I think there's going to be so much video content. I think it's a great opportunity for smaller teams to really jump into that space. You're going to see larger teams struggle a little bit more, just adopting this technology or seeing what's out there. So I think it really is the wild, wild west right now, and it's the people that jump on it first are going to be the ones that succeed and profit from that.
One thing I'm really excited about is like 11 Labs Beyond Words is another tool. Used to be called SpeechKit back in the day. And those tools allow you to take, a written post and turn them into like a podcast, essentially. Like they text to speech. That's the word I'm looking for. And you could even clone your own voice. And I think that would be really fascinating. I actually use Beyond Words on my blog. So every single blog post has an audio version in case you want to listen to it, right? Instead of reading my blog post, you can listen to it while you're on a walk. And while I don't have my voice cloned yet, I don't know how I feel about that just yet. That's a whole other topic we can dig into there. Like, do we want to, go into that? But being able to take every one of those audio blog posts and turn them into a different podcast feed right there is another cool idea.
I mean, we've been told forever, right? And we're probably about the same age, that people learn differently, right? You might like video, I like visual, or I like audio, or whatever it is. I think these tools just simply allow us to meet someone where they want to be met, to create the content for them in the medium that they want it in, right? So as you're just saying, hey, I don't want to read it, sorry, I can listen to it now instead. And in the past, that used to be really difficult to do. Now it's, as you're saying, hey, I don't know how much 11 Labs costs. I've looked at it before, but it's probably a relatively cheap subscription, and away you go. You can now expand your reach and give it to them exactly the way that they would prefer to receive that information. So I think it's a really good opportunity, and I think if you're jumping on it, you need to be able to do it.
I definitely agree with your whole sense of like everybody consumes differently, and having that mindset is really important. You mentioned this a few times. How would you define a fractional CMO?
I think it's pretty different depending on who you talk to be honest. I mean, essentially it's just being the chief marketing officer of a company on a part-time basis, right? And that doesn't, for my clients at least, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not working for quote unquote 40 hours a week, right? I have a smaller team that I work with, and I think this is where it differs. Some people do that. But I bring in a designer or a developer with me that kind of substitutes that 40 hours. So in the end, the client is billed, and it's as though they've gotten a marketing team at the price. And I kind of label that as a fractional CMO. But essentially, it's coming in and doing the strategy and making sure that the marketing is aligned with the CEO. For a smaller company that doesn't necessarily need marketing, perhaps they're really sales led, or it's a niche, or it's a smaller startup, right? Maybe eight people, and yeah, it's a good model for some and not for everyone.
I like that. That's really cool, actually. And going off of that too, how does 08 work?
It essentially 08 is that I'm the quote unquote the face, right? The fractional CMO, and then I bring a team of freelancers essentially that work with me, and we've worked with me for a few years. So I've just gotten a new client, right? And I think there are about 8 people in the organization. So I've come in as the fractional CMO, and for them it's great, right? They pay me the same salary as they would a full in-house employee. But I come in and say, hey, look, I've got a designer and I've got a developer, and we're going to rebrand, and we're going to make sure that you're keeping up with the modern times, and here's a website, and here's all these things that otherwise would have really taken you a lot of time, or you're working with a large marketing agency that doesn't care, that isn't going to go granularly and interview your customers and things like that. So yeah, I think it works for some, but that's kind of the way that 08 works, right? I like to say that it's filling the gaps in someone's marketing.
I love how it's able to help also many companies adapt, like you said, to the newer times. All these AI tools, if you don't keep up with it, you're just going to get swamped. You're going to get flooded. And so it's one of those things where having someone like you to help a company or help a CEO like that is really, really helpful.
I like to say that as part of my offering now is, hey, look, I'm going to really try to expand your team, right? And I use that word a lot, fill in the gaps. So, hey, you don't have a customer support team or a large one. There are tools out there that we can use that can really enhance that. Intercom as a chat widget, or as there's different. I forget the name of the company, but there's an AI phone calling service now where you can call the number and it essentially acts as a customer support representation on the phone. So it's again, the world's moving so fast. Founders and CEOs have got so much to do that they don't really have the time to keep up with it. So if someone's doing that, I think it's a powerful business model to have.
Definitely. And where would be able to? Where can people find you, Mitchell, online?
Even though I've spoken bad about it, I am on LinkedIn. I do check it a fair amount. It's I think it's Mitch Sullivan at LinkedIn. But otherwise, my website is www.08.us, and I've got an email address on there. It's mitch@08.us, and I'd love to hear from anyone. I'm always happy to have a chat, and I don't mind jumping on a call just to talk about AI tools and help someone. It's kind of my favorite thing to do right now.
Obviously, he does like to nerd out about it.
I do like to nerd out about it. My girlfriend is very sick and tired of hearing about it.
I think my flatmate's also really tired of hearing about it too, because I always bring up a new tool and I'm just like, yeah, I get you.
We just need to find people that resonate with it,
Well, obviously I did, because I got you on the show. Yeah, that's
exactly.
Good.
There you go.
Well, this is Dustin PolyInnovator and Mitchell Sullivan on the PolyTools Creator Spotlight. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
It was. I agree.